It's usually me bringing in like venison sticks or something from Bunzel's or whatever it is, but this week we have a guest in studio. You know, we've really been crushing it with guests, and I think this one far exceeds any of the other ones
New
that
Year's
we've had.
resolution, I guess.
It doesn't matter what we want to talk about today because we have the Wisconsin and Illinois territory rep for Feradyne Outdoors with us. And, of course, you know, as we're going back and forth, hey, I love Carbon Express arrows, Wags shoots Rage broadheads, all of these different things. Well, they have Glendale targets, block targets, True Fire releases, Carbon Express arrows, Rage and Muzzy broadheads, covert cell cameras, Rhino blinds, Scent Crusher, and IQ bow sights, and that's probably not even a third
what don't you
of
have?
what they have.
Not much. We have
So
a lot of stuff.
Nick from Feradyne Outdoors is with us. And it's exciting because he's like, well, I've got a bunch of stuff. Why don't I just bring some stuff in for you guys? And he brings this big bag in. And we're like, holy cow. Oh, there's more. Oh, there's more. So this is great. So, Nick, thanks for joining us. Thanks for being in studio with us. And, yeah, we're excited to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. One thing I do have to say is all that stuff I got to take back.
Oh, okay. No, that makes sense. That makes sense.
To look at.
When you're ready for new arrows, this is what they could be.
Yeah, and then I got to take it back with
They're called
me.
demo models. That's what they are.
Exactly.
Right?
So don't get too excited. But no, thanks for having me here.
Yeah, it's so one of the things that we like to do, and I know you got to listen to a couple of the episodes beforehand, but I mean, we're based out of Milwaukee. We have the game network across the entire state. We love our sports that are right here in our backyard, but we also love to highlight Wisconsin brands, which is one of the reasons that I had reached out to you and to your boss and just wanted to have a conversation with somebody because I'm a fan of some of your products. Wags is a fan of some of your products, but we also just love to have, you know, our Wisconsin-based, you know, excellent top-tier industry experts come in and kind of talk about everything that
guys talking Wisconsin stuff.
Exactly that.
In Wisconsin accents, too.
In Wisconsin accents.
That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
The old Wisconsin accents.
So why don't you just start off, you know, in this first segment here, why don't you just give us a little bit of your background and then just how did you end up at Feradyne and give us a little background on Feradyne Outdoors?
Yeah, so I started with Feradyne last February as the territory rep for Wisconsin and then Northern Illinois. And I got into the position where last year I've always worked in the insurance industry and saw an opening and an opportunity for me to join a well-known, you know, company with a lot of good products that I personally used, you know, before. And, you know, filled out the application, applied, and, you know, got the position. And I've learned a lot. I thought I knew quite a bit about the archery industry and hunting industry as a whole. Been hunting my whole life since I was a little kid, but there's a lot to learn. And, you know, all the shops and everything in Wisconsin, Illinois, everybody's just been very nice, very helpful, and you know, a lot of people are willing to share their knowledge, you know, so I've learned a lot just from, you know, talking with the shops. And of course, it's, you know, being in Wisconsin, sometimes you stay a little longer at the shops than you need to, but
hard to imagine that.
Yeah. But, you know, everybody's been really great. And, you know, Feradyne started in 2014 and we're based out of Superior, where we have purchased a lot of different brands, you know, over the last, I would say, 8 years or so, you know, where we acquired Eastman Outdoors, you know, with Carbon Express, and then also, you know, some of our cooking or some of Eastman Outdoors cooking equipment, things like that. And then obviously, you know, Rage broadheads, Muzzy broadheads, True Fire releases, kind of those are our big ones. And then kind of a sleeper, you know, business that a lot of people, you know, they hear about, but it's not well known as Muzzy bow fishing. You know, we do a lot with Muzzy bow fishing. So, you know, the arrows and the bows and all that kind of stuff too.
Yeah.
So, and then a few years ago, our company purchased, you know, OPI Innovations, which had, your covert cameras and Rhino tree stands, Rhino blinds, and chairs. Those are always big ones, especially coming up here with the turkey season.
Right.
It's just amazing to me as I look through your website. How do you even, what is it like representing all of those brands, but how do you even keep it all straight?
Well, I can study pictures really well, but if there's a lot of wording, not good at that.
Not good at that.
Yeah. So if we have,
we'll find the words as we go through the conversation.
Exactly. But our catalogs with pictures, I do a good job of understanding those things. But when
Mike, you were really strong with pictures.
I told you he was going to be a good guest.
That's right.
Yeah.
Baseball player.
Yeah. As a pitcher, we don't study much. We just, we're supposed to go out there and throw. Throw strikes. Like, oh, okay, that's pretty easy.
Yeah.
So,
it's I don't know. It's crazy. As I was kind of like prepping for this and just pulling some things together, I'm like, I don't even know how it's possible to be able to, there's no real way to know everything about all of the products, but you probably set yourself up by knowing, hey, we're going to talk about, ground blinds today. And, I have a couple things that you need to know. What's your biggest challenge having all of those different brands? Like, do you just kind of focus on some, or do you kind of have some of that set up in advance when you're going to be talking about other things?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is, when I talk with the shops, it's what works well for them, what's their customer base and things like that. And then I can kind of gear, my not necessarily a pitch, but, I can kind of find a product that helps them. Like you said, I mean, we have everything from, the start to finish, for hunting. And what works in one area does not work in the other area. And it just depends on their customer base and what they're doing.
So would you go, let's just say we have Shop A over here. You give them a call first. Hey, what are we looking at? What is your specialty? What do you focus on? Are there ponds? Are there marshes here? Are we going to bow fish? Or are we looking at a turkey area or flat grounds? Or are you into the whitetail season? Obviously, you base it on their needs. You also probably base it on the season.
Yeah.
And what they want and needs. You just don't show up, knock on the door and say, hey, I'm here, and this is what do you want to, here's my catalog. Boom.
Yeah, I mean, if I do that, going back,
up.
I was going to say, going back to, if I just pop in unannounced or whatever, they'll talk to me. But
that's what I'm thinking.
Kind of set it up beforehand, because they're busy. They're doing different things, changing strings out, or adjusting timing on bows, or crossbow repairs, things like that. So you want to make sure that you're respectful of their time. But yeah, it depends on the season. I mean, right now, we have, it's what we call in the industry trade show season. So, we're traveling around to all these different cities, where a lot of these shops, they're, part of different groups where they get special pricing and things like that. And a lot of them are buying now to prepare for the fall season, to make sure that they have a lot of inventory.
It's a relationship business, though.
It is.
Yeah. I mean, and and these guys know that my son is in the liquor business. Mm-hmm. And it's the same type of thing. I mean, it's amazing how many brands that he has to know, everything from wine to spirits to, beer. He has to know all that stuff. But again, it's a situation. He said, Dad, I don't cold call bars. I get some leads, and you start, because as you said, their time is precious, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. And the biggest thing too is just making sure that you're able to, take their phone calls or take their emails if they do have a problem or a situation, or they need something, that you're available to help them out. And that's what I love. But, going back to how do I keep my head on straight with all the brands, it was really tough when I first started last year because it wasn't hunting season, so I wasn't able to test everything out. Well, then this fall, I was able to test out, different broadheads, different arrows, tree stands, things like that. So then I could, vouch for it and say, hey, I really like this, and I've used a lot of other brands in the past, before I started.
Is that a subtle way of saying you shot a few deer last year?
I did. I did.
The kill rate was high.
Yeah. I was successful, in the fall. It was a week before Halloween, so that Halloween time frame, you're all excited, the rut's coming, and I ended up shooting our number one buck on our land in southwest Wisconsin there. Like I said, a week before Halloween, and then after that, it was like, well, now what? You got to wait for the rifle season, but my wife hunts with me too, and so you're trying to get her a deer.
It's interesting you say that, like, what do I do now? Because you guys have talked about the fact that you passed on things early in the season because you didn't, you could bag it right now, and then what are we going to do for the rest of the time?
Well, like he said, our number one buck on our property. Now, I don't know how many guys hunt with you, but we have that's number one buck. I'll take that September 15th if I have.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. But other than that, you're right. Now what do I do? Oh, man, that's not it. I know that big guy's here. Sort of like the theories that we've always had in Buffalo and Trempealeau County. When I've gone out there, there's a lot of small deer there. And people say, what are you talking about? There's a lot of spikes. There's a lot of little ones. There's a lot of deer that should have been culled, that should have been taken. The problem is you go out there, and you're always waiting for that 200-inch deer. I've never seen in the rut, when I was there, I was mind-boggled during the rut seeing a bachelor group. I'm like, what is going on here? Mm-hmm. There should never be. I don't care if you have 3-inch spikes. You guys should be butting heads. The big boys are there during the rut. They're chasing, and there's little bachelors, like little teenagers, like hanging out, hiding in the corner smoking cigarettes. And I'm like, you guys got to be fighting for something. But they don't, because nobody shoots them. Nobody relieves them. You're always waiting for that 200-incher. Then you go home with your tag soup.
Yeah.
But if you got
I wouldn't wait.
I wouldn't wait. Then I'll take my number one.
I was going to say, I grew up hunting in Jackson and Monroe counties. We didn't wait, Wags.
We didn't wait.
No, we didn't wait. No, we didn't wait.
Oh, that's funny. So last week I was at Buck Rub, one of the shops around here that I shoot my Winter League at, and this was on Friday, and it was after we got everything, set up for this week, and Raven says to me, I had given her a heads up that you were going to be on the show this week, and in between the time that I told her that and I was at the range, she's like, hey, Nick just called me and said, hey, can I swing by next week? I was like, well, I told you he was going to be here. He's going to make it worth his while.
Yeah, and they're great. Kaz and Raven and all their crew, they do a really good job, and they have a really nice, range to shoot at. And they do a lot.
It's a great setup for Winter League.
Yeah, and
it's
good. They're great.
We often talk, and you're one of the reasons why Wag's eyes lit up when he found out you're going to be a guest is because you're a baseball guy.
Yeah.
You played.
Yep.
And oftentimes Paul talks about how mentally the things that you both pitched, but how he applies that when it comes to hunting. I would assume the same is for you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things where during the off season you kind of focus on your form, or like pitching. When you're during the week in between starts or something like that, you're focusing on form, or hey, maybe changing things up and seeing what works for different pitches, different grips, things like that. Same thing in the archery industry, where you're off season, you're focusing on your form. Making sure that you got good arrows, they're flying correctly, that you have a process involved with the pre-shot. Because then when it comes down to it in the hunting season, you don't think, just like pitching. If you think when you're on the mound, you're done. You're done. The opposing fans and stuff like that will get at you a little bit. But same thing, like I said, in the tree stand, is you don't focus on your form. You're just focused on the process and what you practice with.
Exactly. You think about that, like you learn your equipment. You got to do that. But it goes repetition. You don't always have to be better. You have to be consistent. And I relate that with baseball as well. You've got to be consistent on my pull, my release. I can't let those outside forces. It's tough. It's tough when that big buck comes by, or it's tough when people are yelling at you in the stands and stuff. But you focus and you get that through repetition. And I think your winter leagues, it's great. You learn your product. You learn what works for you. You learn which way would you say right offset, left offset? I'm like, I don't know. I just shoot. But you
just want it
know,
to fly
but you're
straight.
doing it.
Right.
So when I'm pitching, I see a finger down and I just go.
Yeah.
Go. You've done it so many times. And I think at first I thought winter leagues and stuff were for practice, or let's just try to shoot this. No, it's same as baseball. It's to be in that situation, that mindset where no problem. Boom, 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 boom. Tasker throws these big words out, and we're like, I said, he's a baseball player. We don't know what that means, I don't think.
It's all relevant
Starts
to the
with a K,
conversation.
so we just went quick trip. A roller. Go to the roller pan.
Nick's line was the best. I'm 6'4" and 260. Come on, what are you talking about? Come on.
So the reason that I originally reached out was because I've been a huge fan of Carbon Express for my 16, 17 years that I've been hunting, and I was terribly heartbroken when my arrow was discontinued. So we kind of got to go, like chatting back and forth and figuring out, all right, well, here's like your replacement, here's what you can shoot, but we've also got this sweet like drab color. So tell me a little bit about Carbon Express and just like what is, I mean, it's been around forever. I feel like it's such a well-known brand, but there's a lot of noise in the arrow market right now. So, like, what do you tell people related to Carbon Express?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is knowing their setup, first of all.
Okay.
Making sure they have the correct spine. We get a lot of situations where people think the number on the arrow is their arrow weight.
Right.
350 is, my arrow weighs 350 grains. That's not the case.
Yeah.
It's, 350 spine.
Right.
And the higher you go, the more flex that arrow has, where you go down in numbers, the stiffer it is, and that's for your high poundage drawers, things like that.
Paul Wagner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Give me a 950.
Yeah, I think you were mentioning you really wanted to work up to 85 pounds. I think we got to get some new limbs. That baseball shoulder really tested out that it clicks and makes all these noises. It's normal. Is that normal? Yeah, same here.
I didn't ask you that. What do you shoot?
So I actually shoot. So I have the Lift, last year's model, and I shoot 60. I think it's 66 pounds. And I can go up to 70, but having a little bit longer of a draw, still adds a little bit more speed. But if I can shoot sitting down in the tree stand versus standing up, because when it's 20, 30 degrees and you've been sitting for a while and you go and stand up, and again,
Everything's popping then.
Yeah, everything's popping. But then also, you start to shake a little bit, and it gets to you. But that's why if I can shoot sitting down, I'll try to do that.
Sure.
So I turn my bow down just a little bit, but I have friends in that they'll shoot 75 pounds, no problem. But I don't think they were baseball players.
Right.
Their shoulders when you go and pull back, and it's like, ooh, that's not supposed to make that sound. But yeah, Carbon Express has been around a long time. Our probably our number one selling arrow is the Maxima Reds, with our tri-spine technology, and just helps the broadhead fly a little bit better.
Sure.
When it comes to tuning processes and things like that. So yeah.
So what was it? I think I worked at Shields in Eau Claire from like 2007 to 2010 when I graduated. And a buddy of mine shot Maxima Reds back then, so they've been around for a long time. And I just had always admired, I was like, oh my God, those arrows are like, they must be the best, because his dad was a outfitter in Buffalo County and all this, and I had always kind of admired that brand. So my first Carbon Express arrows that I had were like the Crush version, the Lee and Tiffany ones. I was like, these things suck now compared to like how good the new arrows are.
Yeah.
It's amazing how far the technology has come, and just like little incremental improvements, and just all of the different like the front weight on arrows, and just like you were saying, like with tri-spine, and just how different people are actually getting their arrows set up. I mean, even just the arrow industry has changed so much over the course of the last couple of years. There's so many different opinions. Do you find it easy to kind of wade through all of that?
Yeah, a little bit. And again, it's when I talk to the shops, like it's their customer base, and they'll tell me, what is popular in their area. and the big debate right now, and it's kind of going away, but the big debate is, well, do I have a heavy arrow versus a light arrow?
Right.
And when I say heavy, I mean, you're talking 575 grain, arrow versus, kind of your standard 430 to, 480 type of grain range. And the one thing that I will say, because I have friends ask me all the time, like, well, what do you think? Heavy, do I go really
You're
heavy?
the expert. Right?
Yeah, I'm the expert. No, I'm not. But, the biggest thing is when you get out to 30, 40 yards and you have that deer with a heavier arrow, you have to make sure that the yardage is right on the money. Because if the deer's 32 yards and you thought it was 30 yards, you're going to miss completely. We're having a little bit lighter of an arrow. It allows for, mistakes that could happen.
Yeah.
Just like in baseball, right? When you're pitching, it's like, all right, I'm going to hit the outside corner. I'm going to go, low and outside, maybe an inch out. And then if I miss, well, hopefully I just miss a little bit right on the corner rather than right down the middle, and then you're next door because you just watched the ball go 430 feet to dead center. I don't know if that's ever happened to you, but it is happening to me.
Never.
YouTube. Just go to YouTube, type in Paul Wagner.
So my thought on that whole thing, which I don't know, I just posted something not that long ago because I saw something come up in my feed, and I was like, I will fight. It will be the hill that I die on, that I would rather shoot a faster, lighter arrow to get there faster. Any split second that I can make up with it, I would take over the heavier arrow. And it's funny, when I shoot league with all my buddies, they're like, man, your bow just screams. And I'm like, well, yeah, because I'm shooting a 400 and whatever. I was trying to find it, but it's like a 400 grain arrow. I don't have an insert or anything. And I'm shooting 312 feet per second, or what 309, 312, whatever it is. And it's noticeably faster than what other people are. And their complaint is always, well, I have like a 4 or 5 inch drop if we're shooting at the back wall. And it's like, those are all the things that I don't want to have to think about when I'm in the woods. And maybe I'm trying to get under branches and I'm not trying to contort my body in a tree stand to try and make it so that it's okay. But I say all that to say, so Buckrub actually does all of the calculations, and it gives you your kinetic energy, and you can look it up. So that's what I hear a lot is heavier arrows have more kinetic energy. So whatever that equation is, if you're shooting faster, you can make up kinetic energy that way. So that's what I never understood about that argument, is you can still come out relatively like apples to apples in terms of your kinetic energy. And then people are like, well, you shoot the shoulder and your arrow breaks. And it's like, okay, well, don't shoot the shoulder.
Yeah. It's always a debate. I mean, my thought is, let's just say an individual has, the standard 30-inch draw, 70-pound draw weight, right? Your arrow weight of 430 grains to at most, 500, that's going to be good enough to shoot darn near any animal, in North America here. And then you get on the debate of, having a 4 millimeter, which is a 166 diameter, so really small diameter, versus the 5 millimeter or 203, 204.
Yeah.
Or, your standard, 246 diameter arrow. I will say, and there'll be people that'll debate me till the end of time, but having a small diameter, so, like a 5 millimeter arrow that's really light, that you can put a little bit more weight up front. I had a shop tell me about it, and it made sense, where it's like a Nerf football, right? So back in the day, you had the Nerf footballs, and you added a little more weight to the front of that football, and then your vanes in the back steer it.
Right.
You could chuck those things a long way. And then, and then they made the whistling sound, which I kind of miss those. I don't know if they still have them, a little bit. But that's kind
you
of
and Wags could probably throw those things 200 yards.
Not as far as they used to.
Yeah, not as far as they used to.
I'm
They hear that clicking noise.
Yeah, we have to have a doctor nearby because one of us is going to have a torn labrum after probably the first throw.
That's right.
But that's the way I kind of, have had it explained to me is, having
That makes sense,
just a
too.
lighter arrow with a little bit more weight up front. And there's different things you can do, but utilizing your area bow shop, they're the experts and they'll help you out and take the time to really understand your setup and really show you, the benefits of one arrow versus another. So,
Nick Lenzendorf is with us. He's from Feradyne Outdoors. It's fascinating listening to you guys, okay? Because I can remember when I was a kid, and my dad would go bow hunting, so this is probably early 70s, maybe? Recurve. Yeah. And so the thing is that I'm thinking about, like, I grew up in a farming community, right? And I remember the old guys would say when somebody would buy a new tractor, their son would upgrade. It's like, I farm the same amount of land with this stuff. Why do you need that stuff? When you look at some of the things, and it could be a question for any of you guys, that they used to harvest deer back, let's say, as recent as the mid-'70s, early 80s, are you amazed by what they used and then at the same time how far technology has come?
Yeah. I remember stories of my dad along that same lines where he would tell me that, before wooden tree stands that he would make on our land, he would just climb in a crotch of a tree and just sit there.
Oh, my dad did too.
And he would sit there all day.
Yeah,
I'm like, there's no way. Number one, I don't think the tree can hold me.
Yeah.
And, number two, I'm not that agile.
Did you ever have Wags, one of those tree climbers? And what I mean by that, the tree stand that you literally would hook in and then you would walk it up up?
Yep.
Okay.
I live and die by mine. I love mine.
So my dad, I grew up on a farm outside of La Crosse, and my dad would practice, and we had being on a farm, we had the big light pole that was in the middle of the yard that had the light on it that lit up the farm, right? Yeah. My dad would practice on that, and he would go up that post about 25, 30 feet in the air, and he had a target out in the yard, and that's what he would practice on. I thought he was crazy. My mom thought he was going to die. But, it just amazes me, technology, how far it's come since those days.
Yeah, well, and now the big thing is saddle hunting. Saddle hunters.
Yeah.
I have yet to give it a try. My wife.
We're all in the same boat there.
I just have a tough time. I mean, I'm blessed. We have 300 acres in Southwest Wisconsin, private land. Where some of these guys, like, hey, I can understand. They're moving around different states, public land, things like that.
Right.
Allows you to be able to be more mobile. But my wife and I, we went out. We just got married last fall. And we went out to New Zealand for our honeymoon, and they had the zip lining and things like that. And one of the times there was a picture of me somewhere. I don't know. Hopefully my wife didn't put it online, but the zip line, and I'm hanging on this rope bridge, almost like how you're hooked up to a saddle.
Yeah.
And I was scared to death. I would not. They're like, let go of it. You can let go of your hands.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
no thanks.
No, I'm good. So, saddle hunting for me, I don't know about it yet, but I get
There's a big one coming up. I don't know. He's not big enough.
He's not big enough.
He's 215 inches. Oh, no, he's too small. We'll get the next one.
It'll be bigger next year.
Yeah, it'll be bigger next year. And climbing tree stands, I still I borrow one from my cousin. I think it's a Summit, climber, which I really like. They're really comfortable.
Yep. Yeah.
But I have a hard time trying to get up there, and then once I'm up there, I'm sweating so bad that I hope that I see something, here. But that a lot of people like them to be mobile and their setups, but I'll just stick to the ladder stand or even the hang on stands.
Yeah. It was funny. A couple years ago, Wags got his because he had this lease in Galena. And he's like, man, I got to get one of these climbers. Can you just come over and help me figure out how to use this thing? So we're getting up in the tree. We're like 8 feet, 10 feet up in the air. And he's like, I think this is good enough. Meanwhile, I go way up, and my dad is like, why do you get up so high? And I'm like, I don't know. It's where I'm comfortable. I'm happy to be up here. I feel like I'm out of the way. and I see tons of deer that just walk underneath me, and that works for me. So
I go back to Galena.
until it gets windy.
Mikey, can you send me a redneck down here? This climbing stuff ain't working for me. Just bring me the 10-foot stand. I don't need the 15-footer.
Yeah, that's funny.
Okay, so I have another question for you. So there's a lot of different arrow manufacturers that are out there. How much of a difference is there between a lot of the arrow manufacturers? Now, obviously, like the FMJs have like a actual like metal jacket on them. Most of them are all carbon. How do you guys kind of differentiate yourself from the competitors in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Carbon Express has been around, a long time.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of good brands out there.
Yeah.
But it depends, like I said, on what the consumer, what you're looking for specifically. If it's, hey, I want a 8.9 grains per inch, arrow, then the 5mm. Okay, well, there's only certain companies that make those,
Sure.
versus, hey, I want, an FMJ, which is usually a little bit heavier of an arrow, but again, your smaller diameter type of setup. So really, it just depends on what that person is looking for, because every company has, different arrow sizes, weights, things like that. And again, it just goes back to utilizing your local shop, and they'll help you out.
It's almost like you saying and explaining and listening to you, the pros and cons. It's almost like the guy that drives a Ford, he drives a Chevy.
Exactly.
And I drive, you know what?
Yeah.
You find what you feel comfortable in with whatever intricacies that you love the way this handles. That's the one you shoot. It's almost like that, because you said the market is so. You kind of mentioned that they're pretty similar. I mean, we're not reinventing the wheel, but we're doing little minute things. So it's where your comfort level stands, and that's what you do.
Yeah, exactly. Or, I mean, the old tried and true method is, well, I got a buddy, or somebody that I know shoots this arrow, and he shot a 12-pointer last year, so I'm going to use that one. It's got to work.
It's got to work.
But it's amazing to me how many people do that, and yet they struggle. And then when they finally find the right gear that fits their body type, strength, whatever, it's a game changer for them. It just is.
Yeah.
And you pour so much money into thinking, well, I got to try this, I got to chase that. What if you took the time just to get fitted properly, find the stuff that works best for you, then you're going to have the success you're looking for.
The mind.
Yeah,
right?
it is. It's the mind. But you could have buy all the top brands, the best gear, spend an unlimited amount of money on stuff. But if you don't practice, that's the biggest thing, where, the bow is not going to pull back on its own. It's not going to release the arrow on its own. There's all these variables, and you have to practice, because, your setup might be completely different.
Sure.
And works great for you, but for somebody else who has maybe a different bow, different draw weight, things like that, it can be completely different. So that's part of the off season here. Make sure you get out and practice.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's where a lot of people can kind of go wrong, is that they catch on to different trends, and they're like, oh, well, this arrow company just signed with this shooter, and well, this is what I got to do now. I think I told you this when we first talked, is that there's a lot of things that I'm not super partial to, or that I don't have to have like an allegiance, or like, I don't know, whatever, that I do with archery products. And I think that for me, it's been a confidence thing, that I'm like, okay, I don't care how many different arrow brands there are out there. I know that I love these arrows. So, like, even for me, I'm looking at these sets of arrows here, and I'm like, I don't know, man, they're not the XRZs that I've been shooting. I'm not sure how this is going to go.
Yeah.
So it's totally a confidence thing, though.
Yeah.
But then, you'll go get set up, and everything will be fine. You'll start shooting, and then everything's going to be just okay. You get through the summer. You build that confidence throughout, shooting 3D throughout the year, and then you get into the fall and you're ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would challenge people to, there's a lot of different like 3D events, you know, that it's not even a tournament or anything, but there's a lot of different 3D events that happen throughout the summer.
Right.
Where you can hike a lot, get outside, and shoot long ranges, we're 70, 80 yards at different 3D targets, and it's a lot of fun.
We've got a couple more. So the last week or so, I've been kind of posting on my socials, just, if you have any questions about arrows, broadheads, whatever it might be within the outdoor industry. We're going to talk about broadheads here a little bit, and I just first want to before I get into the two questions that I have, what's your perception on the broadhead industry, and kind of what's your feeling about kind of where it's at right now?
There's a lot of options. The market is very saturated.
Yeah.
The best broadhead, I will say, is the one that shoots the best from your bow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty simple. But the whole debate of, you got fixed versus mechanical, and now, over the last year or so, you got single bevel, blades. And again,
and then you have to have a really heavy arrow, because otherwise, it's the whole fad together, right?
Yeah, so. Exactly. Me personally, I mean, I use a mechanical. I used fixed, 7, 8 years ago. But then I switched to mechanical just because, again, out of my setup, they fly the best, and you want a broadhead that's going to, be able to take down that animal, quickly and ethically. And a lot of times, people are scared of, well, what if mechanicals fail? And
right.
That is a true possibility. But I would say 98% of the time it was probably shot placement, or the animal was angled towards you a little bit more than you thought. Things like that, or you hit shoulder, which is always a big deal. But again, it's the mentality of what setup allows you to have the most confidence, and that you've tested and practiced before, during the off season. So when the shot comes, you're confident that you're going to be able to make it effortlessly.
It seems like the mechanical to the fixed, it seems like everybody that I ever talk to, because I like fixed, I like fixed, but they always say the mechanical gives you your bigger cut diameter.
Right.
So again, the ethical, the quickness and stuff like that. So that is, shot placement is obviously the most important thing. But if I'm cutting a 2-inch gap compared to an 1 3/8 or whatever, that's what I think that's where the mechanical field grabbed all of the fixed blade guys, just because they enhanced that diameter cut, and realizing that, hey, if I'm going vitals and I miss that, I got a better chance of slitting a little heart or doing something, rather than being so perfect with with the fixed blades.
Yeah.
That's what I believe, but I like them both. I went away from the mechanicals for a while, and then I went back to them, and I shoot the fixed with the Raven, and I shoot the Rage with my compound. And that's weird, but obviously it's two different setups. It's two different things. I mean, the Raven, I shoot the fixed, and that's just the way I do it. And then the mechanical with the compound.
Yeah, Wags likes to shoot deer at 80 yards with the Raven.
With his shoulder down, don't make fun of the point.
I can't even see 80 yards. What the hell's going on?
Okay, so I have
there's
a question.
Big buck out there. No, Paul, that's a cow.
So I have a question for you as we're coming into turkey season. Compound bow, fixed non-guillotine head for turkey season. Do you have any recommendations, or what would your recommendation be for turkey hunting with a bow?
So turkey hunting with a bow. So they asked about fixed. Fixed
so the question was, is
one?
there a fixed head that's a non-guillotine style turkey broadhead?
Fixed heads for turkey season are tough because, again, for turkeys, you want the biggest cut possible. I wouldn't necessarily go fixed. I would do, a large mechanical, cut. So anything over, 2 inches or right around 2 inches with a mechanical, you're going to be just fine. I did end up last year shooting a turkey with a bow, which was kind of an impressive feat.
Yeah.
My wife got it all on video and that, and I was pretty excited.
Yeah.
I probably won't again, though. Okay. I made a good shot, I recovered it, but turkeys, you have to hit them absolutely perfect.
Right.
And that's why, using mechanical with a larger cut, diameter, it helps. a lot more than using a fixed. And then, like you said, they obviously have the guillotine ones where, you got aim for the head. And that one, you actually have to be you got to have a lot more perfection on that.
Right.
But fixed blade for turkey season, I wouldn't do it. Really any mechanical with a 2-inch cut or larger is probably the way I would go for turkey season.
Okay. The other question that I had, why do you think, from an insider's perspective, Rage gets such a bad rap when they're probably one of the best well-known mechanical broadheads?
Well, I think that's it right there. Right now the big debate. I watched the games this weekend. The Kansas City Chiefs and
they get all calls.
They're the top, right? They're the top
they get
team.
all the calls. It's great. Come on.
Yeah, and that's where Rage was the top, and they still are, in the broadhead industry. And, people like to kind of shoot down the top dog. And that's everybody's opinion, and that's okay. But again, they've been around, a long time. And even recently in the last few years, like we really, our engineers and our product team really did a heck of a job of even getting our broadheads sharper, than they were before, and really making sure that process was done correctly. So they've been working hard. So now our blades are sharper than they were before.
It's crazy to think that they could be any sharper than they already are.
Generic question. We've had people from the ice fishing industry on, and they talked about, after COVID, it kind of exploded. The interest in, we've seen that with the expo and everything else with that. Have you seen similar type things with the bow industry?
Yeah, I think, around the COVID times, it was, people were buying a lot more targets and stuff like that, to be able to shoot at home. Well, they were working from home and just saying, we've got to be careful there. But, they were able to get outside and shoot their bow.
There
we go. But, it allowed people to really, practice a lot more. And especially in the summer, people have kids and they're traveling all over for different sporting events. They don't really practice as much. So, we saw a big boom, in that COVID era. And, now there was a big purchasing push during that time. So, it's tough in the industry because you want to make something that lasts a while, but also you don't want to make it last too long because then, people aren't purchasing new targets or things like that. Yeah. So that's kind of a tricky situation. But yeah, we have seen it now start to come back up in the economy and things like that from COVID. So
it's funny you said something like that. I saw this stat. Titleist golf. Now you can correct me on the number. Like Titleist golf balls, they make you're gonna say, it's not there. 5 million golf balls a day. That's why.
That's not crazy.
So what Titleist does?
Think how many Titleist golf balls are lost.
So Titleist. So when you build your golf course, Titleist says, hey, I'll tell you what, I'll kick in $150,000 if you put 14 more ponds in there. Or marshland. It's weird.
And I usually find them all.
Because I'm looking for mine.
And that's in the first 3 holes. So,
this one's yours. That's me.
Or having the Pro V1X or whatever on the course, and you hit it 2 fairways over, and then you get somebody else that looks and that's my ball, and they pick it up.
I'm curious about the female side to the sport. I would assume it's probably the majority of men, or am I wrong? Do you see a lot of women because what they need from a bow standpoint is completely different than what a guy needs, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's been a little bit of an uptick, in female hunters and especially youth hunters, and a lot of the shops will, especially in Wisconsin, they put on a lot of youth programs, and then NASP is really big as well, in high schools and things like that. But I've seen an uptick in female hunters, and my wife bow hunts, she gun hunts, duck hunt, fish, all that kind of stuff together, and it's great. I think she's a better shot than me because she's a little bit more patient, when it comes to the practicing of shooting.
I've heard that. I've heard not like about your wife that she's better shooter than you, but just that women archers tend to be more accurate than their male counterparts. for, I guess, a variety of reasons. Maybe they're like more patient. Maybe they're more like refined.
Yeah, they are. I mean,
guys get their mark and they just fling arrows.
When I'm hunting, if I draw my bow back on a deer, there's a 99% chance that is getting released within 8 seconds.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have patience. My wife, she sits and, you know, holds for a long time sitting in the stand with her last year. She held for a long time at a deer, and there's no way I could do that. But yeah, there is an uptake in the female hunting industry, and I think it's great.
It's good.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
The whole market.
Yeah.
Like you said, clothing.
Yeah.
Actual hunting tool. I mean, everything will go in broad and open with the women involved in the and with the youth also being involved.
Well, you look at like DSG outerwear is just such a prime example of that. You know, a female geared outdoor clothing brand that is all over the Deer Expo. You know, the sports show. They're all over all of those